But when the Security Council met privately to discuss Rwanda in this small consultation room, it was made clear that calling the killing genocide was just not in the interests of the UN.
By mid to late April, people in the Security Council knew it was genocide but refused to call it as such. Because ultimately one understood that if you use the term genocide, then you might be forced to act. And when someone suggested that maybe they should call genocide a genocide, they were quietly reminded that perhaps they should not use such language.
I know that I personally had an important conversation with one of my superiors in Prague who, at American behest, suggested that they lay off.
Lay off calling it genocide?
Yeah. Lay off pushing on Rwanda in general and calling it genocide specifically.
So the Americans had actually talked to your government back in Prague and said, don't let's call it genocide?
In Prague or in Washington, but they were talking to my superiors, yes.
In fact, Frontline has learned that a secret intelligence report by the State Department had called the killings genocide as early as the end of April. But publicly, the government was still hedging and finding it difficult to defend its position that the slaughter was not a genocide.
Does the State Department have a view as to whether or not what is happening could be genocide?
Well, as I think you know, the use of the term genocide has a very precise legal meaning, although it's not strictly a legal determination. There are other factors in there as well. When in looking at a situation to make a determination about that, before we begin to use that term, we have to know as much as possible about the facts of the situation.
The answers they were giving were really non-answers. They would talk in incredibly bureaucratic language. In a sense, it was almost like a caricature. If you look at it now, it looks utterly ridiculous. These are all kind of artful ways of doing nothing, which is what they were determined to do.
This is a more complicated issue to address, and we're certainly looking into this extremely careful right now, but I'm not able to look at all of those criteria.
By May, the White House was organizing confidential daily conferences on Rwanda with officials across Washington by secure video link. In this secret world, one reason for not calling the killing genocide became disturbingly clear.
One official asked the question about what possible outcome there might be on the congressional elections later that year. Were the administration to acknowledge that this were genocide and to be seen doing nothing about it? The concern, obvious, was whether it would result in a loss of votes for the party in the November elections.
What was your reaction?
I was stunned because I didn't see what bearing that had on whether or not genocide was in fact taking place in Rwanda. Partisan political vote gathering in the U.S. Had no bearing on the objective reality in Rwanda.